Calling out misogyny at work felt righteous, until it cost me my job. I didn't wake up that Thursday thinking I'd become the office whistleblower, or martyr, or cautionary tale, whatever name best fits the strange limbo I've been living in since. I woke up the same way I always did, to the metallic buzz of my discounted sunrise alarm clock and the faint smell of last night's detergent still clinging to the laundry I forgot to fold. I made coffee, scrolled through an article about mindful breathing I absolutely wasn't doing, and told myself again that this would be the month I finally asked for that promotion. If you had asked me then, I would have insisted I wasn't afraid of anything. But of course, people always think they're brave right up until the moment being brave actually costs something. When I walked through the glass doors of Alder & Finch Consulting, the place was humming with the usual energy. Analysts scrambling for datasets, partners clicking through slide decks with espresso-laced determination, interns walking too fast to look important. I'd been there 7 years, long enough to know the difference between ordinary corporate chaos and the quiet thunder of something about to go wrong. The thunder arrived in the form of a headline. The elevator doors opened, and I stepped out to see a group of male colleagues clustered around Mark's desk. Mark was one of the senior consultants, a talented guy who believed talent automatically rendered people immune to criticism. He had that boomerang-shaped confidence. Toss it into the air, and no matter how many times you wished it wouldn't return, it always did. He was reading aloud from his phone, poorly suppressing a laugh. "Listen to this," he said. "Another one. Female executive alleges hostile environment. Blah, blah, blah. They're all hostile environments if you ask me. Everyone's just so sensitive these days." The others chuckled. One pretended to dab fake tears from his eyes. My stomach tightened. It wasn't the joke. It was never just the joke. It was the ritual of it, the predictability, the way it dripped into conversations like a leaky faucet no one bothered to fix. Comments about women being too emotional for leadership. Remarks about female clients dressing like they wanted a reaction. The half-whispered speculations about which women slept their way to promotions, always played off as humor, always dismissed as harmless, and always circulating among the same group like a toxic little ecosystem. I walked past them, hoping, not for the first time, that my silence didn't sound as loud as theirs. Just get through the morning, I told myself. My performance review was next week. I'd been steadily increasing responsibilities, managing a team of 6, and taking every professional development course HR recommended. This promotion wasn't just about recognition. It was about finally aligning my title and salary with the work I'd already been doing for 2 years. My boss, Olivia, waved me into her office as soon as she saw me. "Hey, quick reminder, client pitch rehearsal at 11, and I'll need those market projections tightened before we present." I nodded. Olivia was one of the few women in leadership at Alder & Finch, and one of the few reasons I'd stayed as long as I had. She was controlled, perceptive, and had the unnerving ability to see right through excuses. But she also played corporate politics like chess, and I often got the feeling she was walking on a tightrope I couldn't see. "Everything okay?" she asked. I hesitated. Olivia rarely asked personal questions at work. If she did, she meant them. "Fine," I said. "Just the usual morning nonsense." She didn't push. She didn't need to. "Well, let's keep today focused," she said. "We've got a big week coming." I left her office with a mixture of determination and dread. The pitch rehearsal went well enough. Smooth delivery, clean deck, and only one moment when Jonah, the most senior consultant on our team, interrupted me mid-sentence to re-explain something I had already articulated clearly. That had become his signature move in meetings. He did it with the air of a man who believed he was generously correcting some invisible mistake. I tried not to let it bother me, but irritation sat in my chest like trapped carbonation. After lunch, the incident that changed everything began with a simple Slack message. From Sarah, intern, to me. Subject, quick question. "Hi, sorry to bother, but could I ask you something privately?" I invited her into a conference room. She looked nervous, twisting the cord of her badge between her fingers. "What's up?" I asked. I don't want to make trouble," she said, which is the universal prelude to something troubling. But earlier today, when I dropped off the printed reports, Mark said, well, he joked that I should smile more because the men upstairs are watching, and I didn't know what to say. My jaw clenched. And he, commented on my skirt being dangerously distracting. I'm sorry, I know he probably didn't mean anything by it, but she stopped speaking when she saw my expression. He shouldn't be saying any of that, I said. Do you feel okay? She nodded, but her eyes looked unconvinced. I just wanted to check if that's normal here. There it was, the question every woman learns to ask in silence long before she speaks it. Is this normal? Is this just how things are? Do I have to trade a piece of myself to work here? No, I said, it's not normal, and it's not acceptable. Her shoulders loosened, a small relief, a small breaking. I felt something shift inside me. Maybe it was anger. Maybe it was the realization that my silence was no longer something I could live with. She left the room, and I sat alone, staring at the frosted glass wall until my reflection grew blurry. I'd put up with inappropriate comments for years, telling myself they were minor, survivable, ignorable. But hearing Sarah repeat Mark's words felt like watching my younger self through a double-pane window, wanting to break the glass but never daring to. I pulled out my phone and opened the HR contact portal. My finger hovered, then pressed. Reporting something in a corporate environment feels like dropping a stone down a deep well. You hear the echo of your action long before you feel the consequences. I filled out a formal complaint. I described the pattern of remarks I'd endured over the years, some subtle, some blunt, and the fresh incident involving the intern. I used careful, neutral language because I understood the game. Sound too emotional, and they'd question your reliability. Sound too factual, and they'd ask why you tolerated it for so long. I submitted the report at 2:14 p.m. At 3:02 p.m., HR emailed me asking for a follow-up meeting the next morning. At 3:10 p.m., Mark walked by my desk and shot me a smile that made my stomach knot. Too confident, too casual, as if he somehow already knew. The real unraveling began during Friday's HR meeting. Two people were present, Karen from HR and a man I'd never seen before named Daniel, wearing a navy suit and a hollow smile that seemed trained from years of corporate mediating. Thanks for coming, Karen began, voice soft but practiced. We just want to understand the full context. I recounted the story. I detailed the history. I explained how Sarah had felt uncomfortable. I provided dates, names, examples. Do you have any documentation? Daniel asked. I haven't recorded conversations, I said. He nodded like he expected that answer. And you mentioned that comments like this have been happening for years, he said, but you didn't report them before? The question was gentle, but the implication was sharp. I didn't want to jeopardize my position, I said, or be labeled as overly sensitive, Karen offered. No, as a problem. Karen nodded slowly, but I saw something flicker in her eyes. Worry? Sympathy? Or maybe calculation? They thanked me and said they would handle the matter discreetly. I left their office feeling like I had just handed them something fragile they didn't fully want to hold. By Monday morning, whispers crawled through the office like vines. Conversations stopped when I walked by. People exchanged looks. Around noon, Jonah pulled me aside. Hey, he said quietly. Word is you talked to HR. I blinked. How do you know that? He hesitated. Let's just say people talk, and I want to give you some advice. Be careful. Mark has friends higher up than you think. He crossed a line, I said. More than one line. Jonah exhaled. I'm not defending him, but these things, they never play out cleanly. You know how it looks when someone accuses a senior guy. It becomes political. You don't want to get caught in that. I stared at him. I did what was right. I know, he said, but that doesn't always matter here. His words chilled me because I could hear the truth in them. The next 2 weeks were a strange purgatory. HR conducted interviews. Sarah, the men who'd been at the desk, others who may have overheard past comments. But there was a noticeable tone shift in how people interacted with me. Meetings where I once spoke freely became minefields. My suggestions were ignored. Emails I sent were left unanswered. Projects I was supposed to lead were reassigned without explanation. Olivia called me into her office one afternoon. Things are tense, she said. I noticed. She sighed. I need you to understand something. When you file a complaint like this, the firm has to protect itself. People get nervous. They start distancing. From me? I asked, incredulous. From the situation, she corrected, though we both knew that wasn't true. I did the right thing. I said, "Didn't I?" "You did what you felt was right," she replied, and the careful phrasing felt like a slap. "Do you think I made a mistake?" I asked. Olivia looked torn. "I think this firm is slower to change than people want to admit." Her answer wasn't comfort, it was confirmation. On a Wednesday morning in early March, HR asked me to come to the 10th floor conference room. The request was abrupt, the kind that carried a heavy, unmistakable subtext. When I entered, Karen was already seated. So was Daniel. A folder lay on the table. My heartbeat quickened. "We've completed our internal review," Karen said. "We did not find sufficient evidence to support disciplinary action against Mark." The words hit like ice water. "But Sarah stated that she felt uncomfortable," Daniel said, "but could not confirm intent." "Intent?" I repeated. "He told her men were watching her. He made comments about her skirt." "Comments that he claimed were jokes," Daniel said. "Misinterpreted humor is not grounds for formal action." I stared at them in disbelief. "And the history I reported? The comments over the years?" "No corroboration," Karen said gently. "No written records. No witnesses willing to confirm." "Of course not. The witnesses were his friends." I swallowed hard. "So what happens now?" Daniel slid the folder toward me. "We're restructuring your team due to shifts in client needs. Your role is being eliminated. We're offering you a severance package and 3 months of continued benefits." My mind blanked. Sound fell away. Even the room felt farther. "You're firing me?" I whispered. "We're parting ways," Karen said. "This is not retaliation." The sentence was a script written by lawyers for lawyers. "You can't be serious," I said. "This is because I reported him." "Your position was already under review," Daniel said. A blatant lie. My hands trembled. This is wrong. You know this is wrong." "We encourage you to take the weekend to review the offer," Karen said, her voice gentle again, the way a nurse might speak to someone receiving bad news. "We wish you the best." I stood too quickly, my chair screeching across the floor. Their faces didn't change. I walked out before I cried in front of them. The elevator doors closed, and I collapsed against the wall. My breath hitched, my chest tightened. In 7 years, I had never once been written up, reprimanded, or questioned. I worked late. I trained new staff. I carried teams through deadlines. I mentored interns. I poured myself into that place, and they had discarded me like a liability. When the elevator reached the lobby, I walked outside into a gust of cold air that stung my cheeks. For the first time since I started at Alder & Finch, I had nowhere to go next. I sat on a bench across the street, letting people stream past me. An older woman dropped $1 into my coffee cup, assuming I was crying over something far more ordinary than corporate retaliation. I wanted to scream. I wanted to go back upstairs and demand justice. I wanted to rewind time to the moment I hit submit. But I also knew one thing with painful clarity. If I hadn't reported it, Sarah would have gone through what I had, silently, privately, believing her discomfort was something she had to swallow. And the next intern after her, and the next. Doing the right thing had felt righteous, clean, necessary. But righteousness has a price. I just hadn't realized it could be my career. The following days were a blur of numbness and administrative tasks, severance discussions, exit paperwork, laptop return procedures. HR insisted on scheduling my farewell for Friday before lunch, as if it were a casual transition instead of a quiet purge. Olivia asked to meet with me privately. "I'm sorry," she said as soon as the door closed. "You knew?" I asked. Her expression answered for her. "I tried to fight it," she said. "They said it was budgetary, but they also asked me questions about your attitude, about your collaboration style, things that were never issues before. So it was retaliation. It was politics," she said, "which is its own kind of cruelty." I stared at her, searching for something. Understanding, regret, alliance. "You could have backed me," I said. "I did," she answered softly, just not loudly enough. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was the truth. Before I left, she pressed a slip of paper into my hand. "If you need a reference, call me. I'll help however I can." I nodded, though I wasn't sure what her help was worth anymore. I walked out of Alder & Finch for the last time on a Friday afternoon, cardboard box in hand, plant leaves trembling in the wind. My coworkers signed a generic card. "Best of luck. You'll do great things. Keep in touch." The signatures bleached of sincerity. But as I stepped onto the sidewalk, I did something unexpected. I exhaled, a deep, shaking breath I didn't know I'd been holding for years. A breath that tasted like exhaustion, but also, strangely, like relief. My career there was gone. My reputation, at least internally, was smeared. My future was uncertain, but I wasn't carrying the silence anymore, and that mattered. In the months that followed, the ripple effects became clearer. 2 women, one from marketing, one from operations, reached out to me privately. I heard what happened, they said. We've experienced things too. Neither wanted to report. They knew the cost now, but they said my actions made them feel seen. Sarah emailed me from her personal account. "Thank you," she wrote. "I'm sorry it ended the way it did. I want you to know I'm applying to other internships. You taught me I'm allowed to expect respect." That email mattered more than any promotion. Still, the job search was hell. Recruiters asked why I left my previous role. I gave diplomatic answers. Team restructuring, organizational changes, misalignment of long-term goals. Once, after a 3rd-round interview, a manager leaned in and asked, "There won't be HR complications we should know about, right?" I smiled with all my teeth. "Only if your senior staff tells interns to smile because men are watching. Otherwise, I think you're safe." I didn't get that job. It took 4 months, dozens of applications, and no small amount of therapy before I landed a new position at a smaller consultancy dedicated to workplace equity. During the interview, the CEO asked directly, "I heard you stood up to misconduct. Tell me what you learned from that." For the first time, I didn't feel defensive. I felt grounded. "I learned that being right and being protected are not the same thing," I said. "I learned that systems don't change unless someone is willing to lose something. And I learned that silence has a cost too, just one we pay slowly." The CEO nodded. "We need people like you here." When I got the offer letter, I cried, not because of the salary, which was decent, nor the title, which finally matched my experience, but because it felt like the world telling me I wasn't broken for wanting fairness. I was just early. Looking back, I sometimes wonder what would have happened if I'd stayed quiet. I would still have my old job. I would still be managing my team. I might even have gotten the promotion. But then I picture Sarah, twisting her badge cord with uncertainty. I picture the intern who would have come after her. And the one after that. I picture all the women who calibrate their behavior every day to make men comfortable. And I know the truth. Silence doesn't save us. It only delays the cost. Calling out misogyny felt righteous because it was. Losing my job felt devastating because it was. But I survived. And I created a crack in their system. A crack that someday someone else will widen. And if enough cracks form, even the most polished glass ceiling can shatter. So yes, calling out misogyny cost me my job. But keeping quiet would have cost me myself. And between the two, I finally know which price I'm willing to pay. I didn't start out as a manipulator. At least that's what I tell myself when I'm trying to sleep at night and the silence feels like punishment. I started out as a woman who wanted fairness, who wanted respect, who had been stepped on one too many times in her early 20s and decided she wouldn't be the girl who said, "It's okay," when it wasn't. But somewhere along the line, fairness turned into leverage, and leverage turned into power. And power, well, power is addictive, especially power that no one expects you to have, especially power you can justify to yourself in the name of moral righteousness. My name is Mara. I'm 31, and this is the story of how I weaponized feminism to control every man in my life. My boyfriend, my boss, my brother, my father, even strangers. Until finally, one by one, they walked away. And I still can't decide if I regret it, or if a part of me still thinks I was right. Maybe you'll understand, maybe you won't. But I'm finally ready to tell the truth. It started with Ben. Ben was my first long-term boyfriend after college. Sweet, kind, the type of man people call emotionally mature, just because he didn't disappear for 3 days after an argument. But Ben had a fatal flaw. He tried too hard. Too hard to understand me. Too hard to not offend me. Too hard to anticipate my moods, my preferences, my sensitivities. It should have been adorable. Instead, it was an opportunity. The first time I realized the power I had was during an argument about something stupid. I don't even remember what sparked it. Something about not replying to a text quickly enough. I said, "You're dismissing my feelings," and suddenly everything changed. His shoulders dropped. His expression softened. He apologized, quickly, earnestly, desperately. It felt incredible. Not the apology, not the resolution. The control. The ability to pivot the emotional dynamic with a single phrase. A month later, I leveled up. We were arguing about chores. Ben wasn't lazy. He just loaded the dishwasher like a raccoon with poor depth perception. I snapped at him, and when he snapped back, I said it without thinking. "Wow, that's really misogynistic." He froze. Completely froze, like I had pointed a gun. Not a literal one, but a psychological one, straight at his chest. He apologized for 20 minutes straight, and I learned something that day. Feminism wasn't just a shield. It was a sword. A sharp, gleaming sword I could swing whenever I needed an advantage. I didn't need to raise my voice. I didn't need to be cruel. I just needed to hint, subtly, softly, that his disagreement with me was rooted in harmful attitudes toward women. He crumbled. Every time. After a while, I didn't even have to say it directly. A look, a sigh, a quiet, disappointed, "Really?" That was enough. He'd fold. I used it when I wanted the last word, when I wanted sympathy, when I wanted him to cancel plans, when I wanted something from him he wasn't offering quickly enough. Feminism became my cheat code, but cheating always catches up eventually. Ben wasn't the only man in my life who responded to the misogyny card. I learned how effective it could be at work. My boss, Richard, was a traditional, by-the-book kind of man. Fair, predictable, but he had one weakness. He was terrified of HR. The first time he questioned my project proposal, gently, respectfully, I tilted my head and said, "It feels like you're dismissing my professional opinion. I just hope it's not because I'm the only woman on the team." He went pale. He approved it instantly. After that, all I had to do was imply something was gender-related, and doors opened. Hesitations vanished. Promotions discussions that should have taken months, resolved in days. Was I the most qualified candidate? Not always. But I knew the buzzwords. Bias, pattern, exclusion, dismissal. No executive wanted to be on the wrong side of a complaint a journalist might pick up. So yes, I used it. I used it because it worked. Because the world had always favored men. So why shouldn't I tilt the scales a little when I could? That's how I justified it. I wasn't hurting anyone. I was just leveling things. And then came the milestone moment. The moment I realized I could twist anything into feminist framing if it benefited me. It happened with my brother, Ethan. We had always been close growing up, but he'd grown into one of those gentle giant types. Broad shoulders, beard, soft eyes. The kind of guy girls asked for help in grocery store parking lots. Ethan and I were arguing because I had borrowed his car and brought it back with a small dent. I blamed a shopping cart. He didn't believe me. "You're avoiding responsibility," he said. And instead of telling him he was right, or even lying convincingly, I shot back, "You're talking down to me because I'm a woman." He stopped mid-breath. "What? No, I'm not." "Yes, you are," I said. "You think I can't drive. You think I'm lying. This is what you always do. Treat me like the emotional, irrational one, just because I'm your sister." He shook his head, confused, hurt. That's not what's happening." But he backed off, and I walked away thinking, this works on everyone. Power is intoxicating. You don't notice how much you're drinking until you're already drunk. By the time I hit 30, weaponized feminism wasn't something I used occasionally, it was my default. If a man annoyed me, he was controlling. If a man disagreed with me, he was undermining a woman's voice. If a man asked something of me, he was entitled. If a man didn't read my mind, he was emotionally negligent. Every problem became a gender problem. Every argument became oppression. Every boundary they had was misogyny. Every boundary I crossed was justified by trauma or patriarchy. The system I claimed to fight was the system I used as ammunition, and ironically, the first person to confront me wasn't a man at all. It was my friend, Shayla. We were having brunch when she said, "You ever think maybe not everyone who disagrees with you is sexist?" I laughed, spoken like someone with a boyfriend who doesn't challenge her. She didn't laugh back, but I didn't take it seriously, not then. It wasn't until things with Ben imploded that I realized I'd crossed into something darker. Ben and I had been together nearly 5 years when the end came. He had grown quieter, more careful, more tense around me. He avoided arguments entirely now, not because he agreed with me, but because he was afraid of what I'd call him if he didn't. He wasn't my boyfriend anymore. He was a hostage. One night, he told me he wanted to move in with 2 of his male friends for a few months to save money while studying for a certification exam. I exploded. "So you're leaving me to live in a frat house? Do you know how dismissive that is? Do you know how sexist it sounds to say you need space from me just because I'm a woman?" "That's not what I said," he whispered. "That's what you meant." He sat down on the edge of the bed, rubbing his face. "Mara, I can't do this anymore." "Do what?" I demanded. "Walk on eggshells," he said. "Be afraid of every sentence, every facial expression, every moment you interpret something I didn't intend." "So I'm the abuser now," I mocked. "Classic." He shook his head again, voice breaking. "No, but you use everything, every social issue, every feminist talking point to control me, and I can't breathe anymore." I opened my mouth to argue, but for the first time, he didn't back down. "I love women," he said. "I've spent years trying to understand their experiences. But you don't want understanding, Mara. You want obedience." A long silence hung between us. He left the next morning. He didn't take much, just clothes, books, his laptop. But his absence took up more space than his presence ever had. I told myself I didn't need him. Men were replaceable. Relationships were optional. Respect was mandatory. But the silence in my apartment felt like an indictment. Still, I pushed forward. At work, I doubled down on my tactics. Any criticism from a male coworker became tone policing. Any request became gendered expectations. Any disagreement became latent misogyny. I got my promotions. I got my recognition. I got my victories. But slowly, something else happened. Men stopped mentoring me, stopped talking to me casually, stopped inviting me to project brainstorms, coffee chats, after-work gatherings. They weren't hostile. They were terrified. Women noticed. Some quietly told me I was hurting the movement. Some stopped including me too, afraid of association. My career plateaued so subtly, it took me months to notice. The boss, who once bent over backward to avoid conflict, now kept meetings short and formal. My input wasn't challenged, but it wasn't sought anymore either. I had used weaponized feminism to remove obstacles. But I had also removed relationships, collaboration, trust. You can't lead people who are afraid of you, not in any meaningful way. The final unraveling happened with my father. We'd always had a complicated relationship. He was old school. I was very much not. But he loved me, and I loved him. Or at least I thought that was enough. One afternoon we argued about something trivial, my cousin's wedding venue, of all things. He said women liked sentimental places, and I pounced. "Are you labeling me?" I snapped. "Do you realize how sexist that is?" He blinked, confused. "I meant your cousin picked it, not whatever you think I meant. You're invalidating my feelings. I'm disagreeing with your reaction. And now you're gaslighting me." He stared at me for a long moment. "Mara," he said slowly, "do you hear yourself? What's that supposed to mean? You twist everything." His voice wasn't angry, just sad. "Every conversation becomes a trap. Every misunderstanding becomes oppression. I'm your father. You don't need to defend yourself against me." "Defend myself?" I scoffed. "I'm correcting your biases." "No," he said. "You're punishing me for existing." I rolled my eyes. "Wow, maybe work on your fragility." He nodded once, a tiny, defeated gesture. "I love you," he said, "but I'm tired." And then he walked away. My father, a man who'd once fought tooth and nail to protect me from everything. A man who'd worked 2 jobs to send me to college. A man who'd cried when I moved out. He didn't call me for weeks after that day. The loneliness hit slowly, like water rising. Not a flood, a seep, a gradual soaking into every corner of my life. until I couldn't remember the last time a man looked at me without flinching. My brother stopped texting me for advice. My father stopped inviting me to dinner. My ex blocked me. Coworkers stayed distant. Even male friends ghosted, quietly slipping out of my orbit. I had used feminism like a weapon so long I forgot it wasn't meant to be one. I forgot men were human. I forgot I was too. The breaking point came when my friend Shayla, my last real connection, sat me down. "Mara," she said softly, "you're not empowering women. You're attacking men for sport. And nobody wants to be around someone who sees enemies everywhere." For once, I didn't argue. I just listened, because I was tired too. Tired of fighting battles that weren't real. Tired of carrying resentment like a banner. Tired of mistaking dominance for equality. Tired of mistaking fear for respect. Tired of listening to my own voice echo in an empty room. I'm not going to pretend I've transformed into a perfect person now. Reflection hurts. Accountability hurts more. But I started therapy. Real therapy. Not the self-righteous social media kind. The kind where someone sits across from you and asks, "Why does control feel safer than vulnerability?" I've started reconnecting with my father. It's hard. We move carefully, but we talk again. My brother forgave me faster than I deserved. He said, "I knew you were hurting. I just didn't know how to help." Ben is gone. That bridge burned clean through. I accept that. At work, I'm rebuilding trust. By listening, by accepting feedback without drawing blood, by recognizing that not everything a man says is an assault on my identity. And most importantly, I'm learning feminism isn't a weapon. It's a framework, a tool for understanding, not dominating, a way to build, not destroy. I used it wrong, repeatedly, selfishly, cruelly at times, and I paid the price. When you mislabel every interaction as oppression, you don't become empowered, you become isolated. When you use righteous language to mask selfish motives, you don't gain integrity, you lose it. And when you treat every man as a threat, eventually, none of them stay. This is the part where I'd normally offer advice, a takeaway, a clean moral. But the truth is simpler. I pushed everyone away, and now I'm slowly learning how to invite people back, not as weapons or pawns or symbols of patriarchy, but as human beings. Men included, especially men, because the thing I feared most wasn't misogyny, it was intimacy. And now, for the first time, I'm learning how to face both. If this story made you think, or made you uncomfortable, or made you see a piece of yourself you didn't expect, share it. Talk about it, don't run from it. And if you want more long stories just like this one, raw, honest, consequence-driven, make sure you follow and